What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Knowing is Knowing. I'm your host, Rashad Young, and as always, I appreciate you all tuning in. My guest today is Monique A. J. Smith, an education leadership strategist with over 30 years of experience in athletics administration. She's the founder of Significant in Athletics and Sports Magazine, adjunct sports management faculty member, and the host of the podcast where Significant Blooms in Athletics and Sports. Monique is deeply committed to developing leaders and creating spaces where purpose and impact meet. I'm excited for today's conversation because I learned a lot about just how, when you really are called to do something, the impact you can make, the risks that you take. You'd be so surprised where life can take you. So, Miss Smith, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I think this is the greatest way to end this season. And if you have a dream, please listen to her story. Be very inspired by it. Hope you all enjoy this podcast episode. Make sure to subscribe to your favorite audio platform and to also check out our information in the episode description. Appreciate you guys. Peace. Well, Monique, thank you so much for joining. I'm super excited to connect with you and learn a little more about your story. I think what's really important within these episodes is always to humanize people and their experiences. Obviously, we have the career aspect of us, but who we are, I think is really important to me to the show. So, my first question for you, like I asked everybody else, who are you to the world?
Who am I to the world? It depends on what world you're looking from. So, to the large world, I'm Monique A.J. Smith. I'm a leadership strategist for athlete departments, sport organizations, and individuals who wish to advance an athletic administration or the sports management marketplace. Um, and so, my small town of Waverly, Virginia, and to my class of Hampton University, we just had 35th class reunion. I am
Congrats.
Tony. My nickname is Tony. And so I just had it. So it's all in my memory. They were like, oh, I just scratched out Monique and just put Tony right there. So my name is Monique Antoinette Jones Smith.
Okay, that's so you said Waverly.
Yeah, that's in Virginia.
Okay, well, how was life growing up in Waverly, Virginia?
One stoplight town, you wave and you're out.
Okay. Okay, so small
Both my,
town.
yeah,
Was
both
it?
my parents taught school. So even though it was a small town, um, and I didn't live in the town. I actually lived 7 miles from the town.
Okay.
So, um, but yeah, I was telling somebody actually this week that I could actually charge at not the grocery store, the drugstore, the gas station, that kind of small town kind of feel. The bank, so
Oh wow. So you're talking like a tab charge? Like you can know what you
yeah,
mean by
uh-huh.
charge? Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so you
yeah. Then my daddy paid for it.
Okay, well that's cool. So your small town, was that predominantly black? Was it white? Was it mixed?
It was mixed. It wasn't. If you ever watched the TV show In the Heat of the Night, it's kind of that. You got segments because
Mm-hmm.
it's really fairly typical of small country towns.
Mm-hmm.
You have a major company there. The company provide housing to the workers. The workers' homes are near a railroad track.
Mm-hmm.
That's all across the country. I'm a nerd. I just finished reading this book called Red Clay. I could relate. It was in Alabama. I was like, I could relate to it all. But my parents being school teachers and integrating, my daddy started teaching before integration. My
Oh, wow.
mother integrated as a teacher, as a librarian in the school system. I was born in 67. I think my uh, first grade class was the first with young children having integration. So I think I was 1974 is
Oh
when they
wow.
had the first grade with, and it was only one class that had that. So
Oh wow. So a very historic time.
Yeah, yeah. We didn't. I didn't know it then until I look back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, of course, it's a norm. But thinking about the landscape of things, yeah, that's a very historic
Mhm.
time in our country. I'm curious, how did we get into the lane of athletics and working with people and then leadership? What took us to that route?
Well, I began, ironically, I said my father was a school teacher. His colleague was a school teacher and the basketball coach.
Okay.
And I was in the eighth grade, and he asked my father, would he allow me to be the scorekeeper?
Mhm.
And my father said no. And the colleague said, I will protect her. She will be fine. She'll sit on the front row of the bus. And then I've been keeping scores ever since. And so I went to college on communications major. And I think the second semester of my sophomore year, there was a posting looking for um, the CIAA is looking for PR interns,
Hmm.
and it was during basketball season, and to work the CIAA tournament, and to come in the office to pick the coach of the week and the players of the week, and upload all statistics for the week to make to pick the leaders and whatnot. And so I just worked on Sundays. I was the only girl among three guys. Was not intimidated because I knew I had the experience. Tony Massenberg and I grew up together. He was a freshman at Maryland when Lynn Bias was a senior. And
Mm.
when Lefty Gazelle was coming to recruit him, I had to by hand calculate all his stats. So this was something that was not new to me. But the newness was it didn't bother me, but being a first or only in an area. So I was a student sports information person at Hampton University. We hosted a national championship in track and field my junior, my senior year. I worked that. And so got to be known by the different universities within the CIAA. So when the opening came up, they said, oh, we know the perfect person, that senior at Hampton University. So I became the first full-time sports information director woman, excuse me, in the CIAA in 1990 at St. Paul's College, another one like town. And at this time, I did live in the town. I was there for 8 years. Within the, I think I went there at 23. So 5 years in, at 28, I was named interim athletic director.
Wow.
And yeah, very few women, even at that, were in that role. And so that kind of elevated me nationally. So I served on a lot of national committees. And, during my time, there's something that happens that triggers that you say, because I may have come from a small town, but I never really experienced, I was a privileged child. I didn't experience any discrimination, but
Hmm.
I did experience discrimination as a woman.
Yeah.
And so, and even at that, as a young woman, so it's kind of like the ageism and the sexism going on. And I always said, it's not how long I've been on this earth, it's the experiences had while
Hmm.
being on earth. But
Hmm.
one, a couple of them, I didn't want another woman to have to experience. So I left the AD position. I went Division 1 for 2 years as assistant AD for compliance at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And then the
Okay.
commissioner said, come on back home. Come on back home to the conference office. And I said, I didn't want to come back to do the same thing I did as an intern. And he said, well, no, you come in and you train somebody to do what you don't want to do, and you can do what you want to do. And that's what I did. The second week that I was there, I hired a young lady from Hampton University trained by the same person I was trained by, and we eventually made her the PR director, and I became director of championship, eventually director of governance, and essentially chief of staff. I was at the CIAA for 13 years. But the one job that I had that I enjoyed the most was professional development, helping others reach their goal. And so when I left the CIAA 11 years ago, I just took what I was doing in that central area and just took it nationally.
Mm. So when you say national, are you saying like you just did your own thing from a professional development standpoint, or are you still with an organization?
Oh, yeah, I have my own. My
Okay.
company is called Seeds of Empowerment,
Okay.
and I do staff retreats, student athlete workshops, executive coaching, and group coaching.
Yeah. I mean, that's an amazing story. I'm
Thank you.
visualizing it in my head of just about the route that somebody can take, especially a woman in sports. I've always intrigued by that. To get at such a high leadership position at such a young age. What would you say kept you confident in that space, especially when you know that some people didn't want you to be in that space, you know?
Okay, that's an interesting question. How do you think I did it confidently?
Yeah. Not a
So
good
you're guessing that I did it confidently. So there's this thing called the imposter syndrome. You're doing it, but you still have your confidence checked. You
right.
follow me? Now, how I do that, I'll say this is not for me. This
Mm-hmm.
is for someone else to see the pathway. So that keeps me going because if I was not there, if I was not doing the things that I'm doing now, I've had a podcast for 11 years. So I introduce other women in these positions. There's a lot of position people don't really realize. Like this week, I had the young lady from University of South Carolina. She is director of sports leadership and
Mm-hmm.
sports performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, the rings that are on these teams, she also has one too.
Oh
So
wow.
people don't realize that now Division 1 makes a requirement that you have a mental health professional, either from the sociology perspective or the sports psychology, clinical performance. And there's a lot of areas with this thing. You can be a therapist, or you can have one that you can write prescriptions or give diagnosis. So a lot of people go like, I love sports, didn't know I could be in it. So my point is, it's not about me, it's about informing other people. Same thing with the magazine. A lot of people want to put their shingle out, but they're not really sure how to monetize, how to package their specialized knowledge. Because as an educator, you're used to giving away your information for free.
Okay.
You don't even know how to package it. And I had a call last night where I assisted someone. They were like, wow. So I said, I'm not a business coach, but I can do expert marketing, with them because it's the SID in me. I'm trying to think of the slogans. How can we get people to remember you so that either you're going for the job, they recognize you, or you want the speaking engagement, they recognize you, or you putting your shingle out and they recognize you.
Mm. Marketing is always an interesting concept uh, because there's so many different ways that people tell you to get your name out there properly. What would you say is probably the number one tip in making sure people are marketing themselves properly? Properly.
Well, you got to kind of think about, when people say, this happens a lot. Like I just had somebody call me, I'm having an event. And I said, well, who's your audience? Well, it's the parents. Well, it's the players. Well, it's the coaches. And I'm like, if you're marketing everybody, you're marketing nobody. Now you'll get some other people. Like I got men in my group. I got a group of 3,500 members. That's a companion to the podcast.
Hmm.
They're about 2%, between 2 and 5% men in there.
Hmm.
And then their men always want to be on my podcast. And I was like, you can advertise on a podcast, but you can't be a guest on a podcast. And because my mission is to get the women out there on the pipeline. I've had men to pay to be in the magazine. So the point is when you target one group, you're going to get the others. So
Right.
that's the one thing you got to remember. Who is your audience? And you want to use the words or the thought process you heard them use.
Mm-hmm.
Because then that you had to build trust with them straight up, and quickly. And so that's the main thing is being able to be known for something that's an expertise, that you're the answer to a person's problem or institution's problem or organization's problem.
It's better to be an expert than be a jack of all trades. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, I mean you can. I mean, as you can hear, I got a lot of things I can do.
Yeah.
Like if I did championships. I've done all compliance. I've done sports information, game day ops. But the part I enjoyed the most was professional development. I can make a huge impact by increasing the pipeline with individuals. I even teach at Hampton University. I teach sports management courses. I'm an adjunct, you see? But I rarely promote that. Now, if I do, I'm not promoting me. I'll put a hashtag my current student or my former student,
Mm.
so that my list, I got like 16,000 people I'm connected to on LinkedIn, so that my students can benefit from that network.
Yeah. Yeah. The power of a network. What would you
Mhm.
say is the number one key or one piece of advice you would tell somebody who's actually getting into sports or want to take the route that you took?
Well, internships are really important, okay? Because I actually interned at BET. I
Mm.
interned at the local CBS station and television. And I realized I didn't like that. I didn't, my creativity didn't work out well with somebody in my ear telling me, or to go get the scoop. I'd rather be the one to develop the scoop, develop the spin, you know, put the put the earworms in your mind, create the slogan that you don't forget what I want you to remember, not me going to tell something for the shock treatment. So for me, I just learned that luckily my senior year, and I was just kind of dibbling dabbling in sports information. But when I saw that it was us who got the players all conference, because we did a promotional piece to all of the sports writers and as people, the voting public, and we had the power of influence by the ink pen. To me, that was more powerful than deciding. And I was even in promotions at these places. So to tell you the time frame, when I was at BET, New Edition's "Can You Stand the Rain" album came out,
Okay.
and we created the promo for the launch of that,
Yeah.
as well as "Coming to America." We
Oh
made
wow.
the promotional clips for that. Yeah.
Mm. No, that is a timeline. Also, two classics. So I mean, that's cool to
Yeah.
see the versatility in all those spaces. What is probably the most defining moment you've had so far in the area of sports?
Well, getting the AD job was interesting because I was working the Olympics. I was a press steward for basketball, and they had two sites. So the site I was at was Morehouse. And I don't know if you realize, but when a city hosts an Olympics, the city gets money to enhance facilities,
Mhm.
which is the same way if you host a conference, championship, the city, because you're bringing in economic impact. And so I'm in this refurbished gym that is for the Olympics, and I'm in the back. And the president tracks me down to offer me the AD job. And I'm like, again, you talking about that confidence thing. I was like, I don't know, like, where is this coming from? I had been through 5 different ADs. The person who hired me died of cancer.
Oh wow.
And so that was already, I was 22, 23 and 20. I was 24 when she passed. And so I'm going through 5 different ADs and had to learn how to fire it. Because again, I'm starting as an SID, but when she passes, I'm in compliance. I'm in keeping the girls and the guys say, show me your bill, find out your aid. So this is one thing I tell people gravitate to people get things done. They don't gravitate to titles. So I
Mm-hmm.
was the person everybody came to. So here I'm at the Olympics, and he asked me, I said, well, let me think about it. That night, the bomb went off at the Olympics. And I said, life is short.
Yeah.
I will take this job, and what I don't know, I'll learn on the job like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one defining moment. And then when I was in the conference office, I was tasked to um, recommend 2 women's sports to add to the conference. And I had to pitch to the presidents of the colleges to promote club bowling as a mandatory sport for women in the CIAA. And I said that because I served on a lot of NCAA committees, and I said, um, you need 40 schools to have a national championship. If we make it mandatory for all 12, we're guaranteed a spot in the national championship. I said bowling is already on television, so you can already just, and it was the because this was Division 1, 2, and 3 all competing together because it
Right.
was one of those special sports. And when that happened, I was there for the first one. I believe it was 2004, and I felt like Noah in the Ark.
Yeah, it's a defining moment, of course.
Yeah, it was.
Hmm. Why bowling though? I was curious. Out of all the sports.
Because the NCAA had pinpointed as an emerging sport. The
Okay.
thought was to try to get more minority women. And here's the ironic part. Before I came to the CIAA, I was at an institution that had bowling. All right. And I was there when the MEAC had their very first MEAC bowling championship. So I wasn't aware of it. I got introduced, I got thrown in the fire. So then I get this new job, and I go like, okay, I'm somewhat introduced. Now guess what? That school, Maryland Eastern Shore, ends up winning the national championship. Not once, not twice. I want to say 3 times.
Mm.
Only Black woman winning a national championship for HBCU is Sharon Bromell from University of Maryland Eastern Shore. She ends up leaving to be the number 2 person at Georgetown because she had a business background. But I was her supervisor of the sport when I was at Maryland Eastern Shore.
It's cool.
So yeah, you just never know. That's why you don't, let's just say, I don't know anything about that. No, you go out there and you try, and you just never know what that experience is going to, as a seed, how that seed gonna take root.
Yeah. No, that's so cool, man. That's so cool. And from a professional development sense, what do you say is the one or two things people usually mostly come to you about?
Um, this is part that I try to get people through the magazine where I got their 9 to 5. That come to me after they lose their job and they want to go into consulting.
Mm.
And I say, you need to be known for something before,
Mm.
but then and then that's number one. Then I got to get their mindset right because they're still pissed off about being let go. And they can't get better because they're still in the bitter. So I do a lot of this first before
Yeah.
I can even get to the skill set. All right.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people, when they want to get that next job, they say, "Do you know so and so and so and so?" And I'm going like, "Yeah, I do, but I got to get to know you." So I do the mindset assessment so I can make a decision. Are you just being this profession so you can show so and so you can do it?
Yeah.
Or you're afraid to even. Some people just shouldn't be coaching at all. And I tell them I don't do coaching placement because I don't know if you're a good coach, but I can tell if you're a good person.
Right.
And so if I'm trying to tell somebody to hire you, that person need to win because they the AD. So I don't, it's the opposite way. If an AD asks me about the person, I can have that conversation. And I tell even parents, I said, you need to ask the person who has played for that person, was he invited to the wedding? That tells you this coach is somebody that's in here for a lifetime or for a short time.
Yeah. Hmm. What do you think is the landscape of sports today, from your opinion? Like, where do you think sports is standing? Where do you think it's going? I mean, obviously, NIL is a big thing, but what are your views on sports today with all the experience?
But, again, I believe my calling is to assist the people that come to me in advancing your athletic administration.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say, just like you heard me say, coaching today, you can't coach the way you were coached. Well, now you're going to do a lot of unlearning. Again, I've been in this business for at least 35 years. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a scholarship is something that is not a right, but a privilege.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you should honor that. And, coaches, and I can say, even as an administrator, you hold over the kid's head. If you don't do this, you won't have this. I was telling somebody the other day, and one of these people that I did this to, she's now director of athletics at Dillard University. She was my student
Oh.
at St. Paul's College. And I told him, I said, I need you to play, I need you to pick a spring sport. One is to keep them, focused and not get into anything else. But you had to play softball or run track or play tennis or do something, you know what I mean? And but I had to fill a team, so that was my way of trying to fulfill the team. So for me, it is you gotta unlearn those things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not willing to unlearn those things, you need to get out because I can hear it. I can hear it. Like these ungrateful kids and stuff. And so I'm going like, no, you're not going to be the answer. You need people who can see things different. It's going to be a young person. It's going to be a young person tell us how to navigate this. The disruptor. The world right now is disrupted. Can you say Netflix? Can you say Uber Eats? You know what I'm saying? So that's what we are. So who can find a unique way to navigate this? And so I'm actually creating a webinar using a civil rights worker who helped create SNCC, because that
Mm.
was a student movement. And we are now in a modern athlete movement. And so you, the best thing for you to keep your stake in the game is to develop that this is the rights of the student, that you are an advocate, and if you're in this business for the right reason, you'll get it. You're here to serve the young person. And so I'm working on that to try to, I did a little with my group coaching on Sunday. I did like a little prelim, and they were like, yeah. And here's the thing that came out of that, which told me where to really concentrate, which is true. Everybody wants to get on the bandwagon as an entrepreneur. Come my program, I can do this for you. And it was very similar to the civil rights because this person that I'm concentrating my case study on, I saw in a movie, then I read in the book that she was in colliding with Martin Luther King, like his methods. So So he was using children to get the attention of the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
But her point was there's a systematic way you need to educate the kids. They need to have autonomy of their services, which is why SNCC came about. You see? And
Yeah.
so you got to be protective of who is saying that they are the messenger, they are the leader, because everybody is not serving the young people well.
No, I agree. It is a different time, and like you mentioned, I mean, college sports, I mean, anything in education, honestly, or leadership or development, is it requires a certain person to be able to speak to somebody in a way where it makes sense. And as you mentioned, the disruptiveness, it is hard to see it in a lot of spaces because you don't really see it a lot. I think that's where a lot of clashes come in, where you have a younger generation of people where they have this own ideal, and then you have those that are more experienced and they have this ideal, and it's hard, especially when you're trying to get to the common goal, which is to empower people to essentially be the next leader of your position or somebody else's position. So that definitely makes a lot of sense. How do you think we get to that point, though? I mean, obviously you're the person that's doing it, but just from a collective sense, how do you think we continue that push on creating a collectiveness of building people together up in this industry or other industries?
You have got to develop a growth mindset, constantly growing in your diversity of thought. And I mean, again, I go back to the civil rights. It's a movement of power, which is the struggle. You see, so the power is shifting down to the many versus being smaller from a university. And the students are already changed in the sense of I want to know that you care about me as a person, not what I can do for you. They
Hmm.
were already there because I was doing workshops and the AD would say, can you teach my coaches how to prepare for the new student? So I created a whole game called the newly committed game, like the newlywed game. And you remember the newlywed game, they would go like, you would say, she likes grits or does she like, no, sugar with her grits or yes, no. And you want to see, do you really know the person? So I
Yeah.
used to do the same thing with the coaches. And if you didn't know your kids, you done lost the whole season. You got to know that the child was raised by the grandmother. You
Mhm.
follow me? You got to
Yeah.
know if they were only child or, what makes them tick. Now the portal kind of makes you have kids who love their coaches, but they have got pressure to go out and make money for the family as a young person. And that's where mindset is. I got to go make the money where I can. Now, what I tell students all the time, stop waiting for a brand to fall into your lap. The same thing I talk about with the magazine, you already a brand. You already a brand. I mean, you can go to your hometown and have a camp in your name and have your high school coach run it, and you don't have to be there. That's what name, image, and likeness means. People just want to be connected to you, and you can do that. Letting your name out to people who already love you instead of waiting for somebody to get to know you and trying to make something up and you talking about they want 10 to 20 to 30% of the earnings and they ain't got you nothing yet. So I would say because I do teach at Hampton, I've got when it first happened, can you read my contract? I said, no, dear, but I can teach you what to look for.
Mm, empowerment piece.
Mhm.
I didn't even think about that from the camp standpoint. Yeah, you don't have to be at the camp.
Mm-mm.
It's how you promote it. I never thought about that. Wow, that's
And see,
yeah.
this is
No,
what all my clients say that. I never thought about that.
you
I
never
don't
thought about
care what it is. That's what I do. I plant seeds of empowerment to lead others to greatness.
that. No, that's good. And so my final question for you is, what does it mean to be human to you?
Hmm. Well, let's go to opposite. Non-human is to have no feelings, no emotion, you know. Again, I'm thinking about Star Trek, you know, and he wanted to be human because he wanted to experience the highs and lows of experiencing feelings. Now, you hear people say all the time, it's just business. We stand on business. It's not personal. It's not emotional. Well, we talked about marketing. If you can't hit that emotional lever, we talked about student athletes and coaches. If you can't hit that emotional trust, you don't have anything. So being human is being able to utilize that. And for me, it just makes the world go around, because you really can't, you can do things all for money, but it becomes like eating cotton candy. It has no substance.
That's a good
Thank you.
one. Well, I appreciate that answer and I appreciate your time. For those that can find you on social media, where can they find you?
I like to talk on LinkedIn. I'm Monique A. Smith on LinkedIn.
Well, there it is, folks. Make sure to follow her on LinkedIn. I obviously think LinkedIn is a great platform that a lot of people don't use. A lot of people like to call it the adult Facebook, but it is a big network that I think people should utilize more. And a reminder that I need to get back on LinkedIn a lot more because I used to be really good at it. So, thank you for that reminder. That information will be in the episode description. I appreciate you guys for listening. This has been another episode of Knowing is Knowing. Until next time,